So because of that vector, I think in part that must have been what drew you to TEDMED. Is that a fair?
That's not really true. What drew me to TEDMED
is go ahead.
I enjoy, like many inventors, I enjoy trying to lead the curve as opposed to follow. So, you know, when you meet inventors, typically they want to work on the area that's coming, not on the area that's here. So when the internet barely existed and the digital world barely existed, I was really excited about it because I thought, along with others, I could see what was coming and felt that I could be early in what was coming. Well, now it's here. So working in the internet space is much less interesting. You know, a lot of what's happening is of course fascinating in its development, et cetera, but it's, you can easily see where this thing is going. We're going to wear the internet, we're going to have a voice interface, it's clearly going to be in our contact lenses, you know, our blood cells our organs are going to have IP addresses. I mean, these things are easy to see, all right? It's just no surprises for people who are paying attention.
Yeah, we're all past that, Jim.
But what's interesting is we're entering the century of biology. So we're entering a century now where we're going to peel back the layers of biology, the actual issues of how our proteins run our bodies, how the genetic code gets upregulated and downregulated. The great questions of our age, the age that's coming, are questions about how the biological world or the life sciences world meets the digital world, the world of hard technology, and how those two worlds are clearly going to come together. And that's going to happen in the next 20 to 30 years. It's going to undergo a massive revolution. And so I've moved to that world. That's just the logical place to go. And that's where the action is. So the action is on that line. It turns out I know a little bit about that world, just a little. No, I'm working on sort of getting my MD on the side now, because I talk to doctors all day, and so I have to just sort of be able to speak to these people. So, but it's not that tough. So I'm learning the life sciences because that's where the excitement is. And so TEDMED is the is the TED conference for health and medicine. It's the only independent TED conference. The rest of them are all run by the TED organization. But TEDMED is an independent TED conference. And we just had it a couple of weeks ago at the Kennedy Center. We moved it to Washington, D.C., and we moved it to the Kennedy Center, and we expanded it, enlarged it, and we're going to go global with it, and we've got it simulcast to all the universities and all the medical schools and the teaching hospitals. So this is the world's most exciting time to be in the life sciences, the most exciting time by far. And the life sciences will include the technological world as we understand it today, but it's going to be a spectacular integration of the two worlds. So that's why I've gone there, because I want to go where the action is.
So I'll just conclude. We're about to open it up to questions from everyone else here. What do you think are the major challenges that we face that are truly solvable in what is the equivalent of this, you've now been in this so-called internet era, the way we've all been in it for 15 or 17 years. When you look out on the next decade, where do you think the discussions that occurred at TEDMED a couple of weeks ago, what do you think will improve over the next decade that will be truly transformative?
We talking about the life sciences?
Yeah, health and medicine.
Well, the way we practice health and medicine today is Victorian. So we're at the end of the industrial age of health and medicine, just like we're at the end of the industrial age in schooling. So this idea of a university just goes away fairly quickly. So we're at the end.
Good to know.
We're at the end of that age. So we're at the end.
Smart investment, everybody.
We're at the end of the industrial age. Medicine is still an industrial process. So all of medicine is still delivered very retail, very factory, very industrial, one size fits all. We take drugs that are one size fits all. It would look familiar to somebody from the 1870s. You could drop them into a doctor's office today, and they would pretty much figure it out. They say, "Oh, I know where I am." Okay, clearly out of date by 100 years. So we are living at the very end of the industrial age of medicine, and we're also living at the end of the industrial dark ages in health. So we have almost no knowledge about our health. We have no education in health, so we're all ignorant about it. There's very little attempt to try to understand what makes us well, why we're well, what it means to be well. We all want to be well, but we all want to eat deep fried foods, and we all want to do all kinds of stupid things, but so we just don't want to pay the price. So what's going to change dramatically is there's going to be a completely new integration of how we understand the body and how we understand the systems of the body. And that includes eventually the final frontier of the mind. So we're going to eventually figure that out of how these things work. Whereas today there's this great, 4.5-pound gelatinous mass that's pretty much a dark black box in our heads. That's going to go away in the foreseeable, in your lifetimes for sure.
And how will that have a real effect on people's lives, though? I mean, what's the practical outcome of the?
Well, you'll be able to, for example, you'll have a direct mind interface to the digital world. So you'll be able to think things. You can already think and move cursors. So you can already think and move robotics. So you're going to have a direct machine interface between the mind. It's already happening. Already exists. We actually showed it at TEDMED this year. So this idea that your mind is separate from the digital world, that's going away. The idea that you can't see the digital world.
Facebook's going to be that much more important.
The idea that you can't see the digital data, talk to the digital world, that's all going away. The idea that you're not going to be continuously monitoring all your systems all the time, that's going away. So your phone is going to ring.
So what you're saying is
your phone will ring and it'll say you need to go to the doctor.
Heart rate is?
No, you don't need to know. The AI will monitor it. You're going to get a phone call and it's going to say you need to go to the doctor right now. You're having a problem. You don't even know it yet. You're having a problem. So you're basically an information system. We just can't read the data set. All right, but you're just an information system. You're a multiple layered information system, but you're an information system, and all of that is all mystery to us today. We're really at the very beginning of that. That's not going to be a mystery fairly soon, and that's going to be the great change. You're going to be like a node on the network. Only the network is going to be the real network, and your body is going to be 10 million nodes on the network. That's how it's going to be. So you're going to be your life is going to be very different. Now, for young people, that's perfectly fine. Whoa. For older people, it's like, whoa.
Yeah, I'm definitely thinking heavy.
Not for these young kids. They don't care. It sounds fine to them. Okay.
Ted, my last question. A bunch of people graduated from college this year. You've given commencement addresses. You have things to say about this. What's your message to the young people of NYU and obviously the young people who watch this video?
So fire up your imaginations. It's your most valuable asset by far. All right. The thing you have that most people who already have jobs don't have is an imagination. It hasn't been stamped out of you mostly, so you still have it. So embrace it, nurture it. Your ability to imagine alternatives is an extremely valuable asset that you will steadily lose as you enter the job market, because it is not rewarded for unless you enter those fields for which imagination really matters. If you're in the movie making business, the animation business, the video game business, in those worlds, imagination is a big asset. But for most worlds, imagination, is not highly valued. So you're at a time in your life where your imagination is a giant asset for you. The second thing is people will pay you to solve problems, period. The bigger the problem you can solve, the more you can get paid. If you can execute the solution to the problem, then you might be able to capture a larger portion of the value of the problem, but you don't have to execute it. If you can simply solve a problem for an employer, then congratulations, the employer is going to hire you. Employers hire people who solve problems for them. Those are typically people who can express what the problem is, can express why the problem is solvable, and why you can actually do something to increase the value the employer creates or gains by solving it. Now, just because I called on a dozen airlines who all told me to get lost and die, didn't dissuade me from continuing to solve the problem. I knew I had solved the problem. I just knew that they didn't like me because they didn't want to share any revenue with anybody else. Plus, they were a cartel, so they were much happier operating like a cartel than they were having anybody else somehow neutralize their cartel-like power. So the beauty in being a young student is, generally speaking, though you certainly usually have a fair amount of debt to pay, so that's a lot of pressure, generally speaking, you can solve any problem you feel like working on, which means you can pick one that might be commercially viable. You don't have to start a business, you don't have to be an entrepreneur to solve a problem. Not bad if you are. And if you can solve a problem and you're not an entrepreneur, you can go find an entrepreneur to work on it with you. You can join a team. You can go to a company that hasn't really solved the problem but is doing a Me Too business, another XYZ social blah, blah, blah photo sharing site. And you could say, hey, I've solved a problem in this area that nobody else has solved. Wouldn't my solution help add value to you? In most cases, they're going to say, wow, we hadn't thought of that. Yeah, that'd be good. And most people don't steal solutions to problems. They're way too busy doing things themselves, so you don't have to worry about getting patents, generally speaking. You can literally go just say, hey, I can solve a problem for you. Business owners are very excited about people who show up and knock on their door and say, I can solve a problem for your hairdressing salon.
Jay, I got to thank you for coming by the garage. I mean, you are absolutely fascinating. Thanks so much for being here. So, I'm sure there are going to be people who have questions, so we thought we'd take some. Anybody want to jump in? Somebody in the
I
front,
won't punish you
somebody in the
for asking
back?
a question.
There's someone in the back.
And I'll repeat your question so you don't have to worry about it.
They've got a microphone,
All
I
right,
think.
well, I'll repeat it anyway.
So you pointed out that you've used two different words many times, inventor and entrepreneur. How do you define them separately and differently?
So an entrepreneur is the question is, how is an inventor different than an entrepreneur? They're very different. An entrepreneur is a person who organizes business resources, raises capital, sets priorities, and builds a business to deliver value to customers. That's what an entrepreneur does. An inventor is an intellectual problem solver. Okay, so a person who invents something uses their brain power, sometimes their ability to craft things, depending on the kind of invention. But an inventor is a person who thinks about problems and solves them. They don't have to be an entrepreneur. Sometimes inventors are entrepreneurs. Usually they're not. Entrepreneurs are generally a very special kind of person in the sense that they are willing to take risks that most people won't take and work through discouragements that most people are unwilling to do. When people ask me, should I become an entrepreneur, I usually just laugh. Okay, so if you're an entrepreneur, you know it's an affliction. It's a bit like being an artist, all right? It's an affliction. You don't wake up one day and go, I think I'll be an artist, okay? So entrepreneurs are largely an unusual combination of environment and genetics that make you willing to do those kind of things. You can teach yourself, on the other hand, to be an inventor. It requires work, but it's a learnable skill. Everybody is creative if they're willing to work at it, depending on how they were brought up. But everybody is creative. Just go to a kindergarten and you can see that. So it's a question of whether or not you're going to work hard enough to nurture that creativity to make a living as an inventor. Very hard to make a living as an inventor. Yeah, in the back there. You can just say it. I'll repeat it.
Do you see New York City as becoming the tech and medical hub of the world or of the United States?
So the question is,
Navigating
do I see New York City as becoming the tech and the medical hub of the U.S. or the world? No. There are no more hubs, so that's going away. The notion that geography or physical propinquity is the essence of things is on the decline. New York is a great environment, and there are many great environments. Austin, Texas is a great environment. Silicon Valley is a great environment. There are a jillion great environments.
Well, those are hubs.
Well, they're environments. I mean, there are plenty of centers of excellence, but the centers are more about the people that have collected that go to coffee shops and get together and talk, as opposed to sort of an industrial center. Right? So I think there will be phenomenal inventions everywhere across the world. And what you're seeing on the web much more now is, especially in the sciences, way more collaboration that's non-physical. I mean, you've got these teams that are all over the world that never even physically meet each other. Bandwidth is near free. Video accessibility is getting better and better. It's just a matter of time before you've got 100 megabits to the desktop, a gigabit to the desktop, where the virtual reality starts to get seriously good. So I suspect that those cities matter. I don't think there's going to be a New York as center of something. I think New York will just be a great place, and there'll be many great places.